was afraid lest the men of Egypt should slay him on account of his wife. And when the king of Egypt had taken Sarah, then God smote him and his household with a heavy plagues. And he restored unto Abraham his wife when he was healed. And Abimelech of Gerite, king of the Philistines, God punished on account of Sarah, wife of Abraham, in stopping up every wound from man of Israel. Or excuse me, every wound from man to beast. When their God came to Abimelech in a dream of night and terrified him in order that he might restore to Abraham Sarah, whom he had taken afterward, all the people of Gerar were punished on account of Sarah. And Abraham prayed to his God for them, and he entreated of him, and he healed them, healed the whole nation. God didn't play. Abraham lost faith, saying, "This is my sister," and he was half right. It was his half sister from his uncle, his uncle's daughter Laban. And God was bringing a plague and wiping people out because of a lie Abraham told. That's how loyal he was to Abraham. He killed the people over a lie. He could have said, "Well, you lied. Oh well, so be it." The king took his wife. But no, he didn't. He didn't even reprimand Abraham. But he dealt with those kings, the king of Egypt as well as the king of the Philistines. Brought a plague on. And Amalek feared all the evil. And everybody feared all the evil that came upon his people. And he returned to Abraham, his wife Sarah, and gave him with her many gifts. So did the king of Egypt. That's how Abraham got rich, through his wife Sarah. Like he pimped her out in the way. He did so also to Isaac, when he had driven him from Gerar, and God had done wonderful things to him. And all the water courses of Gerar were dried up, and their productive trees did not bring forth fruit, until Abimelech of Gerar, and all Azusa, one of his friends, and Pichol, the captain of the host, went to him, and they bent and bowed before him to the ground, and they requested of him to supplicate for them, and he prayed to the Lord for them, and the Lord was entreated of him, and he healed them. Jacob also, the plain man, was delivered through his integrity from the hand of his brother Esau, and the hand of Laban and Syrian, his mother's brother, who he had sought for his life. Likewise, from the hand of the kings of Canaan, who had come together against him and his children to destroy him, the Lord delivered them out of their hand. And they turned upon them and smote them, for who had ever stretched forth his hand against them with impunity. Surely Pharaoh, the former, thy father's father, raised Joseph, the son of Jacob, above all the princes of the land of Egypt, when he saw his wisdom. For through the wisdom he rescued all the inhabitants of the land from the famine. And when he had ordered Jacob and his children to come down to Egypt, in order that they through their virtue, the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen might be delivered from the famine. Now therefore, if it seem good in thine eyes, cease from destroying the children of Israel. But if it be not thy will, then they shall dwell in Egypt, and send them forth from here, that they may go back to the land of Canaan, the land of their ancestors sojourn. So he said, if you ain't going to treat them right, kick them out. And when Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro, he was very angry with him. Now Jethro, Moses, that's Moses' father-in-law. His wife was Zipporah, or Zipporah. And Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro. We got all the characters here. And he was very angry with him, so that he rose with shame from the king's presence, and went to Midian, his land, and took Joseph's stick with him. Joseph's shepherd rod. And the king said to Job, the Uzite, what sayest thou, Job? Job from us, of the Bible, the book of Job. What is thy advice respecting the Hebrews? So Job said to the king, behold, all inhabitants of the land are in thy power. Let the king do as it seems good in his eyes. And the king said unto Balaam, what dost thou say? Balaam, speak the word that we may hear. And Balaam said to the king, of all that the king has counseled against the Hebrews, will they be delivered, and the king will not be able to prevail over them with any counsel. For if thou thinkest to lessen them by the flaming fire, thou canst not prevail over them. For surely their God delivered Abraham, their father, from Ur of the Chaldees. Remember Abraham? You'd have been following the series. The book of Jasher series was thrown into the fiery furnace like the three Hebrew children. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He was the forerunner. He was thrown and God delivered him from the fire. His brother was thrown in there with him, Hiram, and he was burnt up. And if thou thinkest to destroy them with a sword, surely Isaac, their father, was delivered from it, and a ram was placed in his stead. And if thou was hard and rigorous labor, and thou thinkest to lessen them, thou wilt not prevail even this. For their father Jacob served Laban in all manner of hard work and prospered. Now therefore, O king, hear my words, for this is the counsel which thou wilt prevail over them, and from which thou shouldest not depart. If it please the king, let him order all their children shall be born from this day forward to be thrown into the water. For by this canst thou wipe away their name. For none of them, nor of their fathers, were tried in this manner. Well, we never tried to drown them in the Nile. And the king heard the words of David, and the king pleased, and the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Balaam. And the king ordered a proclamation to be issued, and a law to be made throughout the land of Egypt, saying, every male child born to the Hebrews from this day forward shall be thrown into the water. And Pharaoh called upon all his servants, saying, go now and seek throughout the land of Goshen where the children of Israel are, and see that every son born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the river, but every daughter you see shall live. And when the children of Israel heard this thing, which Pharaoh had commanded to cast their male children into the river, some of the people separated from their wives, and others adhered to them. And from that day forward, the time of delivery arrived to those women of Israel who had remained with their husbands. They went to the field to bring forth there, and they brought forth in the field, and left their children up on the field, and returned home. And the Lord, who had sworn to the ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels. So they just abandoned the babies in the field. Instead of aborting the kid, they just left them to fend for themselves in the field. The kid survived, he survived. And the Lord, but they didn't murder the kid. And the Lord, who had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels. God sent an angel, which are in heaven, to wash each child in water, and to anoint and swathe it. So God sent nursing angels to nurse the babies. Let you know where God stands with pro-life. God could have let the babies just lay out there and die. No. God sent an angel to save the babies. God's always pro-life. Now, it's been time God will wipe out whole nations, and we're going to get around to Pharaoh and kill all his babies. But God's the judge. If you want to kill a baby, that's him. You don't have a right under Exodus 20:22, I believe. Well, excuse me, Exodus 20:13. Exodus 20:13, thou shalt not murder. If God want to kill, he's just. You want to kill a baby, he's still just. But God sent an angel to minister to these babies. And the Lord had sworn to them, read this again, their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels because of his covenant that God sent an angel to nurse these babies because of a covenant. Now, this is a covenant nation. That's why God ain't playing with this nation for murdering its posterity. This is a nation that's good. This is a covenant nation, Israel. Israel's God's firstborn. He did this because of an oath. And God is doing what he's doing because of an oath that he had with the pilgrims. That's why God ain't letting go and letting this nation go to the dogs. And the Lord, who had sworn to his ancestors to multiply them, sent one of the ministering angels, which are in heaven, to wash each child in water. Each one got special treatment. To anoint and swathe it, and put into his hands 2 smooth stones, from which is sucked milk. So God got a river rock to bring forth milk to nurse the babies. Remember, they told him out, well, we ain't never tried. Killing the babies by drowning them in the river. God used a river rock to nurse the baby. He put 2 hands, 2 smooth stones from which it sucked milk. From one, and from the other honey. So one stone the baby sucked on got milk, the other one got honey. Honey's good for the immune system, to build up the baby's immune system. And we know milk is for nourishment and growth. And he caused its hair to grow to its knees, by which it might cover itself, to comfort it, and to cleave it throughout his compassion for it. So God grew hair to cover the baby. That was his blanket. And two stones to nourish the baby. You gotta give it to God. Nothing's impossible with him. He brought water from the flinty rock to give water to 2.25 million people. That rock has been found too. And you can see the smooth rocks that like a great torrent of water had ran down. You had the smooth river rocks, took away the rough edges. On one side, the other side had jagged rocks. To let you know, water had cascaded from this giant rock on Mount Sinai that Moses struck. A symbol of Christ's death, and because of his death, the Holy Spirit flowing forth. Christ is the rock, the Word. And when God had compassion over them, and he desired to multiply them upon the face of the land, he ordered his earth to receive them, to preserve them until the time of their growing up, after which the earth opened its mouth and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like an herb of the earth. So God had a field of babies going. In the grass of the forest, they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with him. And the babies of the children of Israel were up on the earth, like the herb of the field, throughout God's grace to them. And when all the Egyptians saw this thing, they went forth each to his field with a yoke of oxen and his plowshare. And when they plowed it up, as one plows the earth at seed time, and when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Israel. To the people increased and waxed exceedingly. And Pharaoh ordered his officers daily to go to Goshen to seek for the babies of the children of Israel. They come to your borders. And when they had sought and found one, they took it from the mother's bosom by force and threw it into the river. But the female child they left with its mother. And did the Egyptians do so to the Israelites all the days? And it came time, the Spirit of God was upon Miriam, the daughter of Aaron, the sister of Aaron. And she went forth and prophesied about the house, saying, Behold, a son will be born unto us, my father and mother, this time, and he will save Israel from the hands of Egypt. Moses was prophesied. The planets lined up and the stars, just like when Christ was born. He was the Messiah, the Messiah. Not the Messiah, but he was a Messiah. The Messiah of the Old Testament. He brought the children of Israel the law, which was a shadow and type of Christ. Christ was the fulfillment of the law. He was the law incarnate. And when Aaron heard the words of his daughter, he went and took his wife back to the house after he had driven her away at the time when Pharaoh ordered every male child of the house of Jacob to be thrown into the water. Now you know why this baby was so special to Jochebed. See, the Bible's filling in a lot of blanks for you why she went the distance to protect this baby, make sure this baby wasn't aborted by Egypt. And so Abraham took Jochebed, his wife, 3 years after he had driven her away. He came unto her, and she conceived. One way to put it. And at the end of the 7 months from her conception, she brought forth a son, and the whole house was filled with great light, as the light of the sun and the moon at the time of their shining. This child was special. And when the women saw the child, that it was good and pleasing to the sight, she hid it for 3 months in an inner room. And in those days the Egyptians conspired to destroy all the Hebrews there. Here come the abortionites. And Egyptian women went to Goshen, where the children of Israel were, and they carried their young ones up on their shoulders, their babes, who could not yet speak. And in those days, when the women of the children of Israel brought forth, the women had hidden her son from before the Egyptians, that the Egyptians might not know of their bringing forth, and might not destroy them from the land. So they hid the pregnancy, brought them forth in secret. Those are whole different times than it is now. Now the women are having abortions in secret and hiding their pregnancy. And then, back then, they got pregnant and hid the pregnancy and had the kid, had the child. See how times have changed? Pro-life, now we're in the code of pro-death. And the children and Egyptian women came to Goshen, and their children who could not speak were upon their shoulders, and when the Egyptian already, and when it cried, the child that was in the inner room answered it. So the Egyptian women went and told it at the house of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh sent his officers to take the children and slay them. Thus did the Egyptians to the Hebrew women all the days. Anytime that baby cried, they went and informed an officer, and the officer came and killed the child, aborted the child. And it was at that time, the 3 months that Jacob's concealment of her son, that the thing was known in Pharaoh's house. And the woman hastened to take away her son before the officers came. And she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and dubbed it with slime and with pitch to make it waterproof, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river bank. And his sister Miriam stood afar off to know what would be done to him that would come of her words. And God sent forth at that time a terrible heat in the land of Egypt, which burned up the flesh of man like the sun in its circuit, and it greatly oppressed the Egyptians. And all the Egyptians went down to bathe in the river. Oh, God set the stage. He's burning them up, so they had to go to the river to get relief. And Egyptians went down to bathe in the river on account of the consuming heat, which burned up their flesh. And Bathia, the daughter of Pharaoh, went to bathe in the river, owing to the consuming heat, and her maidens walked at the river side, and all the women of Egypt as well. And Bathia lifted up her eyes to the river, and she saw the ark upon the water, and sent her maid to fetch it. And she opened it, and saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him. Now, it don't mention no time ever that this child wept before that. Keep that in mind. So she did what she had to do to keep that baby quiet. And she said, this is one of the Hebrew children. And all the women of Egypt walking on the riverside desired to give him suck. They wanted to nurse him. But he would not suck, for this thing was from the Lord, in order to restore him to his mother's breast. And Miriam, his sister, was at the time amongst the Egyptian women at the riverside, and she saw this thing, and she said to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and fetch a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the young woman went and called the child's mother. See how God works? He got Moses' mother to nurse Moses. And Pharaoh's daughter said to Jochebed, take this child away and suckle it for me, and I will pay thee, and getting paid to nurse her own baby, thy wages, 2 bits of silver daily. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And at the end of 2 years, 2 bits a day of silver times 2 years daily. So that's 14 bits times 4 times 14 is what, 64 bits a month times 12. That's roughly 144. That's 144 bits a year of silver. For times 2 years, 288. 288 bits of silver to 2 years of nursing their own baby. Not a bad payday for nursing your own baby. That's how God works. And at the end of 2 years, God rewards pro-life. That woman fought to make sure that baby wasn't an abortion statistic. And at the end of 2 years, when the child grew up, she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh. And he was unto her as a son, and she called his name Moses. For she said, because I drew him out of the water. Means drawn out of the water. And Aaron, his father, called his name Shabar. For he said it was for him that he had associated with his wife, because he had turned away. Because he didn't want to have no more. He didn't want to have no abortion, so he said, I'll just abstain from having sex with my wife. Which is what you should do. Just cross your legs if you don't want to have any more kids. And Jochebed, his mother, called his name. And Jochebed, his mother, called his name Jecuthia, because she said, I have hope for him to the Almighty, and God restored him unto me. So Moses got a bunch of names here. And Miriam, his sister, called him, she got a name too, Jared, for she descended after him to the river to know what his end would be. And Jared was one of the sons of Adam. And Aaron, his brother, called his name Abizun, saying, my father left my mother and returned to her on his account. And Caleb, the father of Aaron, called his name Abidor, because of his account did God repair the breach of the house of Jacob, that they could no longer throw their male children into the water. And their nurses called his name Abi Soko, saying, in his tabernacle. Boy, Moses got a lot of names. Everybody got a name for him that meant something to him. Moses is a baby already, healing and repairing the land. He hid for 3 months on account of the children of Ham. That's the Egyptians. And all Israel called his name Shimei, the son of Nathaniel. For they said, in his days as God heard their cries and rescued them from their oppressors. And Moses was in Pharaoh's house, and was unto Bathia, Pharaoh's daughter, as a son. And Moses grew up amongst the king's children. Now, Bathia in the scriptures no other than Princess Hatshepsut, which became queen later of Egypt and ruled Egypt, I believe, until she was 50 years old. She died of cancer. And she ruled it because the firstborn, Amenhotep the first, was killed. I believe, yeah. He was killed by the death angel that passed over Egypt. So she assumed the throne and raised him as a child.